Good evening. I'd like to call this evening's Kings Local Schools Board of Education public meeting to order. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Groff,
Here.
Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Skrull,
Here.
Mr. Belfrom.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have some really exciting things going on this evening. But before we move through the agenda, we just wanted to, as a board and administration, as a district, acknowledge our friends, colleagues, and community in Tusky Valley school districts. Today, they had a charter bus on its way to our Ohio School Board Association conference, and there was a terrible accident. So I know this is a community that, as we've seen from the last several weeks and days, the outpouring and the participation, it's a community that cares about people. So we just wanted to send our thoughts and prayers and our sympathies to them and let them know that Kings Local Schools is certainly thinking of them and we're happy to support them in any way we can. Their board member, Sally Green, is actually our president-elect, assuming the role as president of OSBA in January. So we just wanted to acknowledge them and send our thoughts and prayers to them prior to this evening's meeting. So with that, I'd like to get a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow,
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. So first on tonight's agenda are the reports and presentations. I'll hand it over to Mr. Sears.
Yes, President Belfrom, thank you, Board of Education, and the capacity crowd that exists here this evening at our Board of Education meeting, which we're excited to see. We have a number of really fun things to talk through this evening, but we're going to first get started with our monthly report from the Kings High School Raise Group. So we're looking forward to this presentation. So ladies, come on up. On.
I don't think it's. Testing. Testing. Can I just give your microphone?
All right, I'll go. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for welcoming us back again. In case you forgot or were not here last time, I am Katie and this is Gabby, and we're so very happy to be here talking to you more about the amazing things that have happened at our school the past month.
And then the first thing we're going to talk about this month is our athletics.
So of course, volleyball. So the volleyball team, which is here, are the state champs. So this past Saturday, they finished off their tremendous season by becoming the state champions. And they are the first team since 1994, I believe, to even make it past first public school since 1994 to even make it past regionals. So we're all tremendously proud of them.
And then not only was this team able to break records with their talent and skill, but they had a way of bringing together the Kings community that I have never seen before. The Red Sea really showed up on Friday and Saturday to support these ladies. So this was a super cool opportunity to be there and to see the community.
All right, so to continue with our fall sports, football had 2 playoff appearances this season. They played Loveland and beat them after previously losing to them earlier in the season. And then unfortunately, the following Friday lost to Anderson, finishing off their season. And then the cross country team also finished off their season by sending one of the seniors, Sam Thomas, to state, where he performed amazingly.
And then next, last Thursday, we had our signing day. We, of course, had our 5 D1 volleyball players, Sydney Barrett, Kate Freeman, Dakota Henry, Elise Marshall, and Abby Yoder. But then we also had men's lacrosse player Dane Drake, Sammy Drew was for women's lacrosse, Kylie Hornback for women's soccer, and Isabel Noble for softball.
And then to finish off with our athletics, after the volleyball game on Saturday, we hosted Night Madness, which was the first one we have hosted since 2019. So the firecrackers, cheer teams, and dance team all performed, and the volleyball team was of course recognized. And then the men's and women's basketball team had some friendly competition just to build the hype for their upcoming seasons.
Next up, we have a little bit about our academics. So our Engineering 3 class taught by Mr. Shields every year builds a haunted house. And they don't just do decorations, they do full-on animatronics and things that jump out at you. It's super cool.
Displayed throughout the community, and the 2 that you see there will be hung in the monkey bar. And I am just so amazed that high school students can, draw and paint and create things this beautiful.
Next up, our government classes recently had a really cool opportunity. Some local government officials, Trustee Lel Lutz Heading and Mayor Jim Smith, visited those classes and talked a little bit about those roles. And then students were able to ask questions about how the local government was run. This is a super cool opportunity for everyone, but especially those who are planning to pursue local government in their future.
Next up, the National Honor Society is hosting a fundraiser this upcoming Thursday, November 16th, at the Canes in Mainville, right by the Menards. So if you go there anytime that afternoon and mention Canes, then some of the proceeds will go back to us just to be used for various activities.
And then each month, our National Art Honor Society exchanges artwork with a kindergarten class, kind of like an art pen pal. This month, they did little puzzles, and on the back, they had handwritten notes for the kids.
And then another night we held recently was Military Information Night. So we invited a representative from every branch of the military to come and speak to those that are interested in possibly pursuing military in their future. They talked about their certifications, what their job looks like, and what they hope to accomplish in the future. And then after this, they were able to meet one-on-one with the representatives and just talk about any other questions they had. And it was really just an amazing opportunity for those who aren't necessarily interested in college to figure out what else they want to do with their life.
And then our Art and Kindness Club, they recently created bookmarks that they hid in books at the Sims Library, just to give a little surprise to anyone who might check out one of those books.
And of course, the seniors at the school were allowed to dress up, and they participated in their annual Senior Monster Mash. Those who dressed up were given the opportunity to parade through the hallways, kind of like our Walk of Champions. And after this little parade, classes were given the opportunity to vote on their favorites. So for best individual costume, that we had Marie Antoinette. Best duo was Duck Dynasty, and best group costume was Minions. Me and my friends dressed up as Alvin and the Chipmunks. It was super fun, and even our administrators dressed up, which really just put the icing on the cake. So.
And then next we have our school play, The Green Light. They are performing this Thursday through Saturday. And if you don't remember from last time, this was written by 2 Kings High School grads. So this should be a super cool show. And then our third raised rep, Taylor Kleiss, is in there. So if you wanted to go see her perform, she would be very thankful.
And then another activity is, of course, the marching band. They recently finished off their season by competing in state. Marching band doesn't do first, second, third place for state. Instead, they do ratings, and the King's Marching Band got superior rating, which is as high as you can get. They were also awarded the best music, general effect, and visual. They had one last showing of their performance at Just a Matter of Time at their community night the following Monday.
And then our Be the Difference Day is hosted every year. This is a program offered to the freshmen where they just get a chance to connect a little bit more with their classmates and learn a little bit more about them on a personal level. I remember my Be the Difference Day last year. It was super cool, and I really do think it brought our class together more.
And then next up for our student spotlight, we have Elise Marshall. So Elise Marshall was named Athlete of the Year by the Ohio High School Volleyball Association. And recently she committed to Appalachian State to play D1 volleyball. And then at the state championship last weekend, she actually broke a state record for most kills in a 3-set match at 28 kills.
And then our teacher spotlight for this month is Mr. McDonough, who is our band teacher and marching band director. He puts on an amazing show every time, and drum major Leah Race described him as always pushing them to be better and work harder so that they can be the best musicians possible.
And that is all for this month. Thank you so much for having us, and we can't wait to see you next month.
Great job, ladies. Thank you very much, ladies. As for those of you that this is your first ever and probably your last board meeting, these wonderful ladies show up each and every month and provide some just tremendous examples of everything that's right about Kings High School. We're really proud of all the things that they do and that happen at our and throughout our district. But we're here tonight as well for some of our, probably the main attraction is to recognize our state championship volleyball team, excuse me. So I'm going to take a little bit of step back to think about this team as we begin to recognize them. But it really started for me watching them at least 3 years ago, seeing them as mainly sophomores start to gel as a team. And thinking about last year, a tough 4-set loss in the district championship game against Seton, which we were right with them the entire time. Seton was a tremendous team. We were right there and just couldn't get over that hump in a tough, because volleyball's very slim margin of error in any of these matches when you're playing at a high level. So coming into this year, there was a lot of expectation for this group. There was a lot of preseason hype and a lot of expectation. And I remember the very first match of the year at Mason, I caught these young ladies back behind the scenes. We took a selfie, and in that selfie, I used the hashtag Road to State. So I will say we expected you, but to get to this far, I had a lot of faith in you personally. Thanks for not making me look bad. But you could just see there was something special with this group, that not only were they going to have high expectations, they were going to meet those expectations. So much that they rolled through the ECC undefeated and through the regular season with 1 loss, and secured the #1 seed in Southwest Ohio for the state tournament, which is very unheard of for any public school to be in that situation. Marching again to breezing through the first few rounds, getting to the district championship against Springboro, and it was a beatdown once again, 3 sets that to secure King's first ever state championship or district championship in women's volleyball. Moving on to the regional semis, a little adversity hit this group with dropping the first 2 sets against the defending state champion Ursuline. That put the season a little bit in question. Okay, what's this look like? But what you saw is resilience, you saw perseverance, you saw the team come together and storm back and win the next 3 sets to advance to the regional championship game, where they avenged their early season loss to St. Ursula into an impressive 4-set victory to secure the first state Final Four berth for Kings High School. State Final Four match against Cleveland St. Joseph Academy. Truly probably one of the best high school volleyball matches I've ever seen, ever been a part of. Maybe one of the best volleyball matches many of us have ever seen. Along the way has generated a level of support from this community that has been unmatched over the years. Thousands of Red Sea in attendance, even during the school day, where we were in a position to engage this entire community, where we live streamed your match to over 60 classrooms throughout the district. So not only connecting with the people that were in attendance, but all the young folks in our community that look up to you. Through that match, we win the first set 25-23, lose the second set 27-25, lose the third 29-27, down 2-1. And late in the 4th set, we're down 21-18. Coach Amanda Meadows calls a timeout, regroups this group together. They storm back and win the 4th set 27-25 to power into the 5th set and win 15-9 to secure a state final. Incredible match, an incredible resilience, but just so fun to watch this team to get together. And in that, I believe that I've said this to this group before they started the final match, many of them, they have more fun than anyone else playing. They do. And even when Dakota's diving out of bounds into the dirt, they got up laughing at her in the middle of a really tough match, but the effort they give, the resilience, it's tremendous. And then in the state final, I think the entire Kings community was there. Mr. Taylor did ask somebody to turn the lights out on the way there. To secure the first all public school final since 1997, and ultimately a dominant 3-set victory that we could tell in warmups this team was no match for this group. I said this, but you have more fun than any group I've ever seen play any sport. You guys are friends. You're incredible role models and examples to this community. You've inspired so many and have elevated yourselves, honestly, to rock star status in our district, to where we're parading them around all of our schools tomorrow with that trophy, because the demand has been so high. Like, we want you kids look up to you. At one of our schools after the last match, Columbia, there were kids asking where the volleyballs were so they could go play before they got on the bus because they were inspired by that. That's awesome. You've made your impact on this community is really greater than one trophy. You've set an example for positivity, teamwork, resilience, and have epitomized this district's motto of stronger together. So tonight, our Board of Education would love to recognize you. And you're going to be receiving one of our Stronger Together t-shirts because you've epitomized that the entire school year in this season. So on behalf of the Board of Education administration, we want to thank the players, the coaches, parents, Chad, if he's here, for bringing this community together and allowing us all to go on this tremendous ride. So congratulations to Kings Volleyball 2023 Division I state champions. So. We have a quick highlight video. Mr. Barrett, thank you. We think this is worth showing. It's funny. So before we recognize our team, I'd like to first thank Jen List, Eric Taylor, Doug Leist, and Don Gould for all of the work leading up to this, all the extra efforts, the social media posts, the school organization, the send-offs, the tailgates, just incredible amount of effort. And you guys also, you exemplify that stronger together approach. We appreciate you. And I think all the things that this is what Kings is about. So appreciate everything you guys do. So thank you. So I will bring Mr. Eric Taylor, our athletic director. He's going to come up and we will introduce these young ladies. And Mr. Taylor's going to say a few words and word will come out to the front. And so you guys will come through the horseshoe, shake hands, and then we will get a big group picture afterward.
So before you start, Mr. Taylor, so some of the board members and I, we grabbed a couple of programs at the game on Saturday, and we need those autographed. So when you get your stuff, come sign those. We're trying to decide, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Lice, if I'm going to keep one. Me personally, I think we will donate one to the school because it'll look nice in the case. And then there's been some talk about the other one being perhaps auctioned off at night to remember, because I think a lot of people will want that. So I should have bought more while I was there. But just before you leave, we'll have them over here for you too. Mr. Taylor, please continue, sir.
Well, thank you all. I had a few things to say about this team, but quite frankly, Mr. Sears hit really all of them. You want to talk about just a leader in our district that's connected to our district, connected to our school, our community, our student athletes, our students, student body staff. You know, he's completely connected, and I couldn't say better everything that he said about our team. The only thing that I would add that wasn't mentioned, and he just hasn't got this information yet, but what I'm also, volleyball doesn't define these young ladies, as everybody has seen and heard. What else is so impressive about this group is when we define, or you talk about the definition of student athletes, this group, their average GPA, they had the #1 highest of 4.1 something team average GPA, which was #1 in Division I in the city of Cincinnati. So you're really, we're talking about state champions in the classroom. We're talking about state champions on the court. There's not a better team in Ohio on the volleyball court than these young ladies right here. And I'd challenge, there's not a better team in the classroom than these young ladies right here. They epitomize and define student athletes. So a little extra special for that. Congratulations. So I'll go through our list and introduce some of our players. Again, we'll talk about a couple accolades here, but this team's more than accolades. And but I would hate to not mention some of them. First off, Emma Niebauer. Kennedy Horsley. Annabelle Sinney. Abby Trapp. Ava Schroeder. We have a second team All-ECC player in Ava McIntyre. We have a first team All-ECC player, ECC Defensive Player of the Year, and third team All-District, Dakota Henry. Another second team All-ECC player, Sophia Richardson. Honorable mention, All-ECC player, Kate Freeman. A first team All-ECC, ECC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-District, District Player of the Year, first team All-State, record holder for kills in a year, record holder for kills in the state finals 3-set match, Miss Elise Marshall. Our next first team All ECC player, second team All District, AVCA All American, and record holder for assist in a year and career assist, Abby Yoder. And last but not least, first team All ECC, first team All District, first team All State, record holder in kills in a career, single season aces and career aces, Sydney Barrett. Our tremendous coaching staff, starting with our assistants, Nick Toth, Adrian Green, don't believe I see Don Naranjo or Julia McCavitt. And last, our fearless head coach, Amanda Meadows. Congratulations to all, and thank you to our board for allowing us this opportunity to present. And where is that trophy? Coach Meadows left the trophy. Let's take a good look at this trophy.
Yeah, we're running my tryouts right now. Only one of us can try out. Great.
You signed the program.
Thank you for doing that.
You would like to say anything before they leave?
You sit for us.
Me?
You're the spokesperson for the board.
I was gonna say, actually,
Just tell them to hang on one second. Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be the one because I think Mrs. Groff went to like every match, but we just want to thank you for being such exceptional student athletes, an exceptional team. I talked to a few people. I showed a few people that video over the weekend. And one of the people I showed it to asked me if that was an NCAA tournament match because of the crowd and the level of play. I think you all had like a 10-minute point in that third set that was absolutely amazing. Just very proud to be a Kings Local Schools board member this week and stick my chest out and tell everyone that, yes, we have the state champion volleyball team. And I had to refrain from being too demonstrative on Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, now X. My wife said you can't send out broom emojis. We went back and forth on that, but I refrained. But in my conversations with people, I said, yeah, we won and it wasn't close. And they knew. I think I told Mrs. Cowan we were there in the second set. I said, they know this is not going to be close. They already know. All due respect to Olentangy, but they knew. Olentangy knew too. They didn't have a chance. So that's me puffing my chest out. I could ramble on. We want to thank you all for what you've done, what you've accomplished, and continue to have the great rest of your year. Soak it in, enjoy it. Mr. Lice will be, limiting your press availability for the rest of the week. So you go to class, but, thank you. Right. Thank you so very much. Coming from state champions, that means a lot. Appreciate that. But you're welcome to leave. Parents, families, coaches, thank you so much. I have a son that graduated from here in 2020, and he was on the basketball team, the football team, the track team. I know what that's like, getting all those practices. I know coaches got to get back right now for tryouts. So thank you so much for everything you do, the time that you put into everything. And I hope as a community, we represented you well. I've never seen anything like that. It was fantastic. I wish you guys made it quick, but it was great. So thank you so much. Thanks for coming out tonight. And
Thank you.
It's more fun with you girls here, but
Second. Sure. Moving on to the remaining portion of our reports and presentations. How do you overcome that, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty fantastic. Next on our reports and presentations, we have kind of a summary update from Charlie Janigan from SHP, summarizing the master planning recommendation that was presented at last Tuesday night's work session. And so I'll introduce Charlie Janigan.
Thank you. And as someone who's watching from afar, it's been awesome. I was glued to my phone all over the weekend, refreshing and watching it from a distance. So congratulations. It's so really awesome to see. I'm getting goosebumps sitting here today. So just to give you a summary of the master planning process. If you want to go to the next slide. Here are some high level things. Just do one more click here. So we had 3 community advisory team work sessions, and those sessions had over 35 community members at each of them. We held 8 focus group sessions. Those were some targeted meetings with certain constituents that wanted to talk about various topics, performing arts or athletics. We had 2 open community forums where all residents were invited. Those were held in the auditorium at the high school. Those were also live streamed and also shared on YouTube, where there were 2,400 views. There was a district-wide mailer, and that went to 11,000 households, inviting the community to provide input and feedback on the master plan. There were a ton of social media advertising on Facebook, Instagram, X. There were 87,000 views and 37,000 people were reached through that outreach. At the end, we had 2 surveys where we gauged the community's thoughts and opinions about the plans, and we had 1,900 respondents. And we started with 11 master plan options, and that really led us to today, which there is 1 recommended plan that was presented last week. So the second survey was pretty powerful. There were 1,200 combined responses. The new high school option was the one that stood out between an addition option and a new high school option. Of the respondents, they were asked to gauge 1 through 5, and 82% rated over 3 and up, which is kind of that neutral and over, that they supported that new high school option. 68% of folks who responded to the survey rated the new high school at 4 and up. So there was 4 and 5. So we're the higher sections, and that's a very high number supporting the high school option. The parents, if you want to click one more, rated the high school option at a 4.6 versus a 2.9. So 3 being kind of that neutral. The new high school options really stood out with parents. 74% of parents also rated the high school scoring that 3 and above. So in parents' views, it was very, very highly supported. Next is the community feedback. The high school was rated at 3.2 versus 3.15. So it a lot closer, but it did stand out, gaining a little more support. And 64% of the community rated the high school above that neutral line of 3. So that was some really compelling results from the feedback that we got on the surveying. So that leads us to the recommendation, which is before you, and it is a new high school, grades 9 through 12. The grades 6 through 8 would move into the high school and parts of the junior high, and give them some more space and some relief with some excess classrooms. Columbia would be converted to a 4-5. It would also warrant a small addition. And then the elementaries would remain neighborhood schools. That we heard that loud and clear from your community, and they would be reduced to K through 3s. And this building here would also be maintained as a preschool. So this was a really fun master plan. We're really excited about what we've done. We've had excitement and energy, and the energy to here with these athletes. We'd love to transfer that to the next step in the process. So I did provide a schedule. I know that was a question last week. I kind of explained it out loud. And if this were to be supported by the community on March 19th, 2024, design would start immediately after, but I'm showing this starting in April. Programming would begin, and there's a lot of phases in design called schematic design, design development, construction documents. They can just kind of add more. You can see in the middle too that there's estimates done to make sure that things are on budget and tracking according to the budget. And then about mid 2025, drawings would be wrapped up, about 14 months, 16 months or so of drawing time, where we would then secure pricing. And then you can kind of see the construction. There might be a little early site package, but construction would be about 30 months, depending on the materials and systems. 32 months. It's tough to tell right now at this stage, but it would be ready for a late 2027 move in. And then closeout tends to be a longer item as far as getting punch list items and warranties and a lot of those remaining pieces in place to meet the standards of the community. So that's a schedule that goes all the way into 2028, which is wild to say that year, but here we are. So with that, any questions from the board members?
So with respect to the KCC, or rather, excuse me, the existing junior high, it's not yet designated, but the intention is that we're going to maintain that facility, correct? I'm just making sure I get that question out there.
I think it's a good question, so I'll tackle a little bit of this piece. When you look at the time frame that we're working under, in a late 2027, early 2028 school year move in, by the junior high classrooms and that physical structure gives us a little bit of time to continue to evaluate growth in our district, as we're continuing to see that. But the reality of it is it does allow for some flexible space for us to use for innovative purposes, also for workforce development purposes and to support our Power 5. So there will not be buildings unused, if that's the best way I could say. These will be used for high academic purposes to advance students, and potentially respond to continued growth and enrollment in our district.
Thank you.
And I know it's going to be too soon to tell this, but are we expecting a late move in for the school year that begins fall of 2027 before school starts?
That would be the target, and ideally, districts want schools to be ready in August for move in. Oftentimes, with just the humans and the world we live in. This building would be ready on August 15th, and they say, here it is on August 16th, put kids in it. Some districts want some time. So sometimes schools are done in, let's say, December 1, and technology principals get familiar with it for 4 weeks before they actually open it for kids, on January 3rd, for example. So it's one of those things where a building of this size would take about 32 months, knowing kind of average times for school construction. But it's hard to predict without knowing all the materials and systems and equipment and lead times. We still are in a period where there are some really long lead times for certain items. Generators for commercial buildings are over a year out. Electrical equipment is over a year out. So to be safe, I said move in late 2027. Ideally, it could be August, but it may slip to a little bit later in the year just because of procurement. Okay.
And just for clarity, since there's no mention of the bus barn in the plan, bus barn has no plans on moving at this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We have not, and any concept that we did to test to see what fits. The bus barn was remaining. The entire lot was remaining. It's not being relocated.
When we talk about changing the elementary buildings to K3, that will take some time because the 4th grade classrooms need to move then to Columbia.
Yes.
And the 6th graders then need to move. And so, I'm thinking in the middle of the year, how does that work?
Correct. There's a little bit of a sequencing that needs to be closely looked at and explored. The good thing is the Columbia expansion can happen much quicker. So that would be about a 9-month design and probably a 12-month construction. So if that can be much faster. That could be ready really for fall 25. So we will work closely if it's funded with districts to orchestrate all the moving parts and to make sure there's clear communication and understanding of when those changes would occur.
You have any other questions, Ms. Channing? Mrs. Grow?
I have one more. We've had community involvement all of the way through the process, which I really truly think that it's been so very helpful. We've gotten, different ideas and perspectives. Is there any more public participation when we start looking at design?
Oh yeah, yes. So any design that gets fully funded, we would employ a very active community engagement process where we would have a variety of teams. So there's usually a building team, there's a community-based team, and we would work in similar fashion with a CAT team to gain feedback from the community members on certain things. A lot of it tends to be site-based things and circulation and traffic, but we make a point on all public jobs to make sure we incorporate community feedback because they're the ones honestly who own it and who are living with it.
Then would that be the same CAT team as we had just now?
I think those members would be up to the district. Generally, those folks have a kind of a passion for it, and so we see some continued participation when school projects get funded. But we would also invite new members and new perspectives. Yeah. And we also tend to host open forums where we might have a couple design ideas, similar surveying. Hey, here's design A, here's design B. Give us your response, take a survey. So a lot of the tactics that we've used through this master planning process, we do when we're in the trenches of design.
Thank you. And congratulations on the prestigious award on the Winton Woods building.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Could you possibly share with the board at some point some of the pictures of the finished product there
Sure.
so we could see?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, our firm won a really nice award for the Winton Woods program. It was considered the equivalent of a Grammy or an Oscar for an entertainer. For an architect, it's called the McConnell Award. So Winton Woods likes to refer to it as the MAC. So anyway, yeah, well, I'll be happy to send some slides and floor plans so you could get a better understanding of the concept. Yeah, really, it's focused, grounded in project-based learning. So really neat project. I'd also invite you to tour it. They've got teaching ambassadors who give really nice tours. So
Mrs. Groff and I discussed that we would love to tour it, so. I'm
great,
sure
yeah.
Our other board members would love that too.
Absolutely.
But anything you could share, that would be fantastic.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Any further questions for Mr. Janning?
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Monk?
So next up is we have Andrew Brosart. He's a partner at Bradley Payne Municipal Advisors. I mentioned last week that we had been working with an all-star team, Bradley Payne, RBC Capital Markets, and Dinsmore Attorney Group. And I've asked Mr. Brosart to come and kind of give a lot more detail about the finances of a project of this scope. I kind of gave the board a preview last week, but he's going to get into the weeds a little bit more. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, good evening. You're really coming down the excitement spectrum now to interest rates and bonds. We like it. So what we're going to do is kind of walk through just some of the inputs that go into what make up the ballot millage calculation, and then what down the road in terms of structuring with the bonds and how the final tax rates get levied to the end user. And so we're going to walk through a couple of slides here just so you get a feel for where the market's at, and then we'll have a summary of your bonds that are outstanding now, and then show you a peek of what it would look like if it were to pass. So yes.
Before you start, could you explain to me what Bradley Payne is, just so
Yes,
we understand?
happy to. So, yeah, so we're a municipal advisory firm. Great question. We are not involved in the actual underwriting side of the transaction. We help guide the district through the different steps to get to the bond issue and then ultimate pricing. When we get to the pricing stage of the financing, we then work with RBC to make sure that we actually have a fiduciary duty to the district. We're the only ones involved in the transaction under federal law that get audited on this. And so we are there to be your eyes on your team to make sure that things are priced the right way, and that ultimately it is the most efficient financing that could be accomplished for the district is our role.
Thank you.
Yep. So next slide, we'll walk through some ugly slides, I would say, that right there. This is just to give you a feel for what's happening in the marketplace. And what you're looking at here is what we call it's the MIG-1 scale. It's the 1-year note rate index. And you can see we've gone in terms of that little lull there, we went down to 25 basis points. You could borrow for a year tax exempt at the highest credit rating. And you can see when inflation started to hit in, what happened, we skyrocketed all the way up to the right there. And we kind of feel like we've hit a ceiling at this point in time. Inflation is starting to get a little bit under control. We saw some great news this week, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is the area that's the most volatile. And you can see that when you start to have either a recessionary environment as you go back further and see the dips that come down, the short end of the curve will move the quickest. A lot of actually all of your debt is fixed rate debt. And so, and we'll talk about the yield curve as well, but this is the 1-year note market here. The next slide is for all of us bond enthusiasts here is it's sort of like the sort of the New York Stock Exchange for bonds. This is a 20-year bond index, and you can see again as every day they gather 20 bonds together, and this is the 20th year rate. So you can take a snapshot of where rates have been. You can see the spike up and the dip back down. And again, we're starting to see a dip back down a little bit in the last couple of days, but you can see just perspective where rates have been over the last couple of years. If we would go back even further, you'd be in the teens. And so, I mean, we're not it's been an adjustment, I think, to the financing world, because we were so low for so long, and now spiking back up. So this is the yield curve, and the grade bar that you see, and starting from the left is the first year of a bond. And bonds are sold
individually each year. And so each individual year has a separate interest rate tied to it. And as you start from the far left and go to the right, this is the yield curve, the first year, and then all the way up to, in this case, the 30th year. The gray bar indicates the range it's been going back to 1991. And so you have the top of the range and the bottom of the range is what the gray bar represents. The average there in the middle, I'm horrible with colors, but orange would give you your average right now. And this is the first time actually we've crossed over the average and been above that. And that just happened in the last couple of weeks. That green bar there, which is where we're at, started November 1st. This week, we've actually seen 20, 30 basis points, 0.25% come back down. And if you watch the 10-year treasury, you've seen that move very volatile. It doesn't move usually that much in the past. And when I first got in the business some 25 years ago, you see 3, 4, 5 basis points of a move. It was pretty dramatic. And now we see 8, 9. I think today we saw 8 or 9 basis points back to our direction going lower. And so these all are part of an input that go into, again, your bonds when they get sold, when that time comes. One thing to point out too is that as we go into your bonds, because this impacts the millage that's being collected now, you will have the opportunity in the future to refinance your bonds as well. And so it used to be that a 10-year lockout period, if you will, for investors, you'd pay a 1% penalty. Then they start to get away with just a 10-year call period, lockout period. Now that's kind of moved even further back. And so now we're doing 7-year calls. And the reason why it's important is that you can't refinance these bonds the way you can refinance your mortgage, like if you wanted to every week, if it made sense. You have to wait for a period of time. And so you got to really find the right trigger time to do that when the opportunity pops up. But you'll have the option to refinance. So when we sell the bonds, it won't be the last time you see it, and won't be those interest rates will be out there forever. So the next page, I believe, lists out your current bonds that are outstanding. I know it's a little bit hard to read, but if you got a copy of this, you can look at this in more detail. But this just shows what's outstanding in terms of voted bonds for the district at this point in time. It lists through what was originally issued, what's currently outstanding, and then the final maturity date there. And then we talked about that optional redemption period. That's the next time you can call some of those and refinance if it would make financial sense. So that's just a little bit of the highlights of what's outstanding for you at this point in time. Credit ratings are very important. You've got a great credit rating for the district at AA. Those are the 3 agencies that will rate bonds in the investing world respects. And when they buy your debt, it's better to have Standard & Poor's or Moody's. Each one of these, this is sort of this is considered the investment grade category. So it's better to be to the left than it is to the right. I don't recall when the last time you've had a rating. They don't do this often, but when you go back to issue new bonds, that process will have to occur again. But AA rating is a very good, attractive rating for an investor to rely on. Here's a picture of your debt service by issuance. And so the different colors down below represent the years that were issued under. And you can see there, obviously, the purple is probably the largest group that's outstanding. And your final maturity is in 2033. And so, this was sculpted together over the refinancings that have been done over time for the district to really try to get to a level debt service, which means you pay almost the same amount if you can over time. And if you go to the next page, it gives you your assessed valuation. And again, these are all inputs that go into the ballot collection that'll be seen at the ballot box. But this is your assessed valuation trend line. And you can see, typical 0809, it was a bit of a decrease, and now you're starting to see an increase go higher to the right. So again, the assessed valuation is an impact. So the higher the value, it would, or increase in values will also decrease the millage that a taxpayer would pay. And here you see that millage for each one of your bonds that are outstanding. The top is the total, and that's a little bit misleading. They're collecting 3.5 mils right now. and that's going to level off and actually come down as you see some increased values hit the district. Those rates will be what they call reduced and roll back to collect what's needed to pay the debt service. And so right now we're about 3.5 mils, but you can see that again, that's constant. Over time, we working with the district, we make sure that you're not overly projecting increases out to the future. We've been very, very conservative with that approach, and so I think that you probably see more growth in the value, but it'll just decrease the amount that's needed to be collected by the individual taxpayers. So now we get to the proposed bond request, and we're going to walk through a little bit of this. If you can see that up there, the valuation for the total district is what, and again, we had several phone calls and even a meeting Mike and I did with Auditor Nolan. We went down and made sure that he was, we were doing the calculation correct. They confirmed that these numbers were all correct. And so the value that's used is for next year's estimated tax collection. The tax year 2023 collected 24. The interest rate we're using for the calculation is 5%. And then the maximum years that we're calculating that over is 38. So then we input the issue size, which is $142 million. This is a mandated way that they have to calculate the millage that goes on the ballot. It's not the way the bonds are sold, but it's the way that they have to calculate for folks when they go to the ballot box. And we're sitting right now at the 5.97 mils. Any questions on any of that at this point in time?
I have a question on interest rate.
Yes,
So we're projecting it to be around 5%.
that's correct.
What if that were to go down as we're seeing interest rates get better?
Yeah. So when they go to the ballot, this is merely an estimate, right? And so as we go to issue the bonds, as I say, that interest rate goes down to 4.5 on average. It would decrease the amount that's actually collected every year by the taxpayer. So that's the calculation for the millage request. So we go to the next page. Should be one more. There we go. So the inputs on the next page is what we want to talk about here. So again, we've talked about a little bit of this as we were going through the presentation, but the increase in assessed value that will decrease the millage over time. Interest rates, as was just asked, the interest rates go down, the millage needed to be collected over time on the debt payment will be less, and so then the millage will come down accordingly. And then the length of the borrowing. And so a lot of districts are using the 38-year term. As you go through in the future years, have the ability to refinance. You can either shave off years later or just lower the rate overall to taxpayers is another way to look at that. The other thing that's going to really impact what they end up seeing on their tax bill after the bonds are issued is how the bonds are structured. And so decreases in current debt payments that are outstanding, that chart I showed you what your debt is outstanding now. In 2033, you see a drop off. And so to decrease the impact to taxpayers, we're going to structure the debt so that we're not going up the full 5.97 mils. We're only going to need 3.5 mils. And so in essence, you're doubling your tax rate for your bonds from the current 3.5 to an additional 3.5 until 2033 comes along. And then it'll drop down because all those other bonds are paid off. Strategy that's been used a lot across the state. It's an effective one. And it's, I think Sycamore, we worked with Sycamore on their package and that was done there. Southwest Harrison area was the same way, and even Mason next door to you all. So again, it's an effective way to help relieve the burden on the requests. And then I think the next slide is going to show you. This is actually the cost of 3.5 mils to each level of a assessed value, and then we have the average home cost within your district in terms of what that looks like as a cost on an annual, monthly, weekly, even daily basis, if you wanted to break it down that far. It's a helpful chart to have when people are asking you, hey, what does this look like to us at that 3.5 mil level? And then lastly is just the chart that shows you what we just talked about, how we're going at the green is your current debt. And we're at 3.5 mils now. With the passage, you jump to 7. And then you would, over the time drop off further. And again, you can see that we've kind of, we're not showing a large amount of growth in the future. We've been very, very conservative with what's going to happen with reappraisal updates and then just regular growth within the district. That's a fun disclosure language we have to put by the SEC if you want to read that later. If there's any questions, happy to answer them about any of the information that we have up here. We can jump back to slides if you like.
So we are getting a new valuation coming
Yes.
soon. So tell us how that affects the millage that we'd be asking for, the 5.97, and how does that affect taxpayers?
Can you jump back to so that is currently factored into we met with Auditor Nolan about the reappraisal that's coming up. He gave us an indication of, hey, this is a valuation increase that you can estimate because we wanted to find a strategy that worked for the district well. And working with his office, this was really already factored into. And so we took that reappraisal year, and then after that, we took very minimal increases. If they're higher, those millage rates will come down even further. So it'll again spread the base or the rate out further in terms of other valuations or other growth that might happen in the district.
We have any further questions? Just taking me back to my Series 7
Oh, is that right?
exam days. You're making my head hurt.
It's a fun test.
Yes. Any further questions from Mr. Broussard? So I had the same question Mrs. Groff had, but I think you clarified that 1.2 billion is the estimated valuation that's getting collected in 2024, right? I think that's what, okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
And we confirmed that number with the
Right.
county auditor at our meeting to make sure it wasn't an estimate and we had numbers that were real.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so a community member comes up to me and asks me, okay, I understand that you're asking for 5.97 on the ballot,
Mhm.
but it's actually going to feel like 3.5 in my taxes. How can I explain that to them? Like, I've asked a ton of questions to Mr. Morrow.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a pretty good grasp, but how can I explain that to the average person that this is a lot of
Yeah.
information?
I think that one of the best ways we've seen it, and we talked to Kent Cashel at RBC about this as well. The strategy that's worked best is that you have other debt currently being collected that is coming offline at some point in the future. And so, you're really, for a period there, you're going to go to 7 mils, right? But the idea is that you're just replacing what's being collected currently because the debt is falling off. I think that's probably the most simplest way to explain that. It's unfortunate that you have to put it on at 5.97. There's been some strategies with, and I think we're gonna have conversations with Auditor Nolan too, to try to see that Worthington actually did. They passed $250 million and they had some language out there that said, hey, this is how this is gonna work, even though it's stated at 5.97. We're only gonna collect 3.5 mils because of these reasons. Now, they have to take you for your word, but obviously you don't want to violate your trust with the taxpayers. And so we wouldn't lay this out if we didn't think it was possible. I'm not sure if that helps you or not, but that's probably the easiest way, is that debt is rolling off and that you only need 3.5 mils.
Franklin City Schools use the same strategy. They had an advertised amount, everyone kind of on the bond. Couple million dollars, so there's other things.
Right. Well, I think Sycamore is, a good neighbor to us. We know lots of people there. I mean, those neighbors could, try and explain it and how it's affecting them right now, but I just want to make sure I'm trying to make it as easy as possible without getting into the weeds too bad.
I agree with that.
I know we've got some community members who are probably watching and will come back and watch that. Is it possible, can we get this slide on the website so they can see based on what my house appraised value is, this is what I can expect on my tax bill? I think just seeing that will help the average taxpayer understand that a little bit better. Oh, did I say appraised? Okay, yeah, true value.
Absolutely. And if the board elects to move forward with the master plan, then we've been brainstorming some graphics and things to be able to put on the website to help try to explain this whole process as simple as possible, and also give a calculator and a simple graphic like this to be used.
Do you have any further questions? Sorry, Ms. Janigan.
Matt Nolan does a great job of explaining it too. So it's just a lot to wrap your mind around when you see all those graphs.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming.
With that, next on our consent agenda for this evening is participation. Queens Board of Education recognizes the value to school governance of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. The board offers public participation to members of the public and applies the procedures to all speakers and does not discriminate based on the identity of the speaker, content of the speech, or viewpoint of the speaker. The board is also committed to conducting its public business meetings in a productive and efficient manner. The board provides a period for public participation at every regular meeting of the board and publishes rules to govern such participation in board meetings. The board president is the presiding officer and will administer the rules of the board. The portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is invited is limited to 30 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. So with that, we do have one public participation request this evening from Heather Schultz.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak again tonight. For those who are present or might be watching online and don't know me, my name is Heather Schultz. I'm the parent of a class of 21 alum and a class of 2026 that will become important in a minute student. Both of my children have been highly involved across multiple sports and activities, and my youngest has had classes in every building in the district except SLE. So we've personally experienced how the growth in the district has impacted its learning environments. A couple months ago, I shared my thoughts on this, and I thanked the board for spending the time to work through how to best serve the classes that are coming after my daughters. So thank you again. I work for a company that I'm fairly certain is older than the school district. And at a recent meeting, a senior leader reminded us that for many on our team, We've reached the point that we may be planting trees under whose shade we may never sit. And it's clear to me that even if the board takes action tonight and the community supports that action, my daughter will graduate before we see a facilities master plan be fully realized. Yet my neighbors, my friends, my coworkers' children, all of King's Community's children who are coming after her will benefit from an improved learning environment. This week, I found an article from the Cincinnati Enquirer dated December 1967, talking about moving from the old Kings Mills High School to the new Kings High School and changing from, I didn't know this, from the Adams to the Knights. And I think about how much courage it took the community to move its high school students from a building that more than 70 graduating classes had attended. It must have been difficult to wrestle with the emotions wrapped around the decision to make such a big change after so much history. And yet, the article is written with hope and excitement for what was to come next. To quote the article, "Progress is very important in this day and age. There is no denying it. If one tries to live with exactly what he has, he will be left behind while the rest of the world is moving forward." And they continue, "The administrative body of our school system realized this, and in order to promote progress, made plans for various changes for the new high school and successfully carried them out." So to bring us back to today, I want to thank you for giving the community an opportunity to provide input to a facilities master plan that solves the issues across the school district in a comprehensive and a responsible way. And thank you for not looking to Band-Aid the facilities issues with temporary solutions. Finally, to quote those King's journalism students who wrote that 1967 Enquirer article, "King's is a school rich in yesterday, aware of today, and preparing for tomorrow." Thank you for continuing to serve that vision.
Things public participation. Moving forward in the agenda or the consent agenda items for the treasurer. Mr. Morrow, did you have anything? 5-year forecast you wanted to discuss this evening?
Yes, that's correct. I did want to update the board on the 5-year forecast. We'll have a short presentation. And then also there's a full document that's about 23 pages that kind of goes into detail line by line. But we'll stick to kind of a higher level in the beginning of this and dig a little bit deeper as we get through. And then I've sent the board this full report ahead of time. So if there's any questions, please feel free to stop me at any time. So go ahead to the next one, please. The 5-year forecast is required to be submitted twice annually. We're trying to look ahead at what's going to happen to district finances for the next 5 years using the best information we have today. Everything evolves so quickly that we're updating this monthly and providing the board any kind of large changes throughout the year, but we're mandated by the state to present and report to the state twice a year. Thank you. I wanted to start off kind of at a high level. We talk about how much cash does Kings have. Last year we spent $62 million and we have $11 million. $11 million is a lot of money, but I wanted to put some perspective on that. So the most recent data available has 93% of schools in Ohio having more cash relative to spending than Kings does. I think that is really important for us as an administration and board to keep in mind. We don't have a large savings account and we run pretty lean. So any kind of large fluctuations can really throw a wrench in our financial plan. Go ahead to the next, please. I mentioned running lean. Did want to point out that we consistently spend less than the average school district in Ohio. And what we do spend is driven by instruction, which is a great thing. So I put some numbers just to kind of quantify where we rank in Warren County and across the state. in our spending per student, but then also the results that come from the money that we do spend. So we consistently rank in the top 50 of schools in the entire state, and consistently spend much less than the average school. Next slide, please. So what's not changed? We continue to get more kids. As we get more kids, we have to spend more money to maintain the great things that we do here. With rising personnel costs, transportation, and student specific costs. So these are our biggest cost drivers. We're talking about the biggest piece of the budget, and as our staff get older, they gain more experience, they make more money. So it's a constant balance of younger staff coming in, older staff leaving to help keep costs from kind of growing exponentially. And then inflation, we just heard that hopefully inflation's slowing down, but the new prices are here to stay. I mean, we don't expect that just because inflation slows that everything's going to drop to levels from 2 to 3 years ago. So we're kind of living in a new cost structure in all of our services and all of our supplies, and so something we need to live with, and it has been factored in. So what's not changed, or what has changed, excuse me, our labor agreements were settled back in May. We were projecting what those labor agreements would look like, and us and the unions agree that we struck fair labor agreements for 3 years. I know you've probably seen online all the unrest that's happening with some unions across the country, and we were glad to be able to work with ours to come to a fair agreement. State funding increases. This is a new one for Kings that hasn't been said in a long time. Actually got to see some of the additional money that the state is giving schools. We got some of that, and we'll dig a little bit more in a minute. And then projected health insurance renewal. This is a big one. We spend, us as a district and employees, over $7 million a year on health insurance. So when you can get a negative renewal compared to a market renewal, it's a big deal for the staff and the district. And then our purchase services. So this is our transportation, our student specific services, our custodial services, rising faster than I would like to forecast into the future, honestly. I've told the board since I got here, conservative, but realistically conservative. I keep being too low on this one. So I'm going to have to kind of train my brain to keep keep going higher. Unfortunately, you can see between 23 and 24, there's a pretty big spike there. I'm hoping that that's going to level out to some degree with the inflation kind of calming down, but we continue to see really high costs there. Hit one more button, please. Okay, so kind of go through some of the bigger ticket items on the forecast. Our main driver of revenues is property taxes. I like the chart at the bottom because it shows that change column right in the middle. That's the community's property tax rate going down as values rise. So we've said all along, we don't get more money when property values go up, people's tax rate goes down. So that chart does a nice job of showing that. State funding, I mentioned, we're estimated to get an additional $1.8 million over the current state budget, and that's 2 years. And this is a huge win for us. We worked really hard with our local representatives and also community to try to advocate for Kings and for the entire state. It wasn't just us. We wanted districts of similar ilk to also benefit from the excess money at the state level. Chart on the right is kind of interesting. You see a nice big $1.2 million increase in funding, and then we're projecting to get less next year than we did this year. This is King's Wealth relative to the rest of the state coming into play. So they're giving us some money. We look more wealthy. That money goes down. It's kind of a roller coaster ride with us, which is not common across the state. But you saw Mr. Broussard's presentation, those property values rising so rapidly. It's causes our state funding to fluctuate and get kind of wonky. And then future guarantee, you guys probably remember me saying that we're a guarantee district, meaning we're getting that floor amount. We're on a trajectory to be back to that. So that's why if you look out to the later years, we're getting very little extra money from the state based on current projections. Go ahead. Personnel, kind of touched on this. We negotiated with our unions for 3-year agreements. So we're able to build that in the forecast without having to guess. We get 3 years where we can be pretty precise on what our personnel and payroll expenses look like. Insurance, you probably saw, and we talked about, we got a negative increase this year. I'm projecting on the forecast back to more of a market. We've done really well in our insurance, but it only takes kind of 1, 2, 3 bad claims to where you can kind of flip that. So we go back to market trend. Purchase services, kind of already talked through this a little bit. Just reiterating what I said before, this is the one that we've had the most trouble with as a district of than myself, of being able to estimate what that's going to be in the coming years. So we continue to work on that and spend a lot of time and energy. And we do what we can to try to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck with the services. It's just the services continue to go up and the needs continue to go up. Go ahead. There was one more, just ongoing work. I wanted to remind the board and community that we spent a lot of time and effort in the past year working on state funding advocacy and also on kind of long-term financial planning. We have those groups set up. State funding advocacy is kind of dormant at this point in time because the state budget was approved and we were able to get the excess funds. But the long-term planning group, we met with them been a few months back, and they kind of charted out a path for some things that they wanted to see the district look at. So we've began working on those items, and then we'll meet back up with them for a status update and then talk about maybe some other potential items that we can look at as a board and administration.
Mr. Morrow, forecast. Did have one question, Mr. Morrow.
Absolutely.
So back on the main assumptions, the first main assumption slide, those valuations, particularly 2024, where you talked about the change column, is that the year of the is that the year of collection? So that's not next year. That's not the valuation, Mr. Is that the valuation like Mr. Broussard used, the 1.3? Is that 24 collected in 25?
That's correct.
Okay.
So tax year 24, and those are the community tax bills in 25.
Gotcha.
It's 1 year in arrears. So right now, the taxes that you paid in 2023 was actually paying the bill from 2022.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So it shows up as tax year 24, but hits your taxes in 2025.
Okay. Because I was thinking the 23 is consistent, that number, with what he had, and I got confused myself. So thank you.
But you had it. Yeah, absolutely.
You have any more questions for Mr. Morrow regarding the forecast? And Mr. Morrow, did you have any additional just a note on items 2 through 6?
I do not.
All right. With that, may I have a motion to approve items 1 through 6 or 2 through 6, the minutes from the October work session and regular meeting, the financial items we discussed last week, the wellness event, and the public records log.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfon.
Yes. And item 8 is the resolution requesting fiscal office to certify maximum maturity of bonds. Mr. Morrow, did you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I'll clarify what this resolution is a little bit. So this is asking the board to approve the first step in the master plan approvals. So there would be 3 total approvals if the board elects to continue this process. This first step is certifying or allowing me to certify that this project meets the qualifications for a 38-year life of the loan. And so I've worked with our architects, our advisors, and our bond attorney to make sure that that we do meet the qualifications and we're able to certify if the board elects to continue this process.
Any?
And then can you explain the difference between that and number 10, just so we understand?
Sure. So number 10 is the board declaring that the master plan, the $142 million is necessary for the district. And that allows me to certify this resolution to the county auditor, where he will establish the millage that would be on the ballot. So as Mr. Broussard said, we've already worked with him to get the number. It's 5.97. But for him to physically put pen to paper, the board would approve this. And it also allows me to apply with the state of Ohio for us to take out the loan for the $142 million. It meets some thresholds where the state has to be involved in the process. So this is resolution number 2. The one for December is the one where you're asking me to actually send to the Board of Elections for this to be on the ballot. So first 2 steps, nothing is locked in stone at this point. If these are approved, that comes later in December. That's the kind of final vote.
Any further questions regarding items 8, 10? All right. Well, with that, may I have a motion to approve item 8, the resolution requesting fiscal office to certify maximum maturity of bonds?
I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
And next, may I have a
We
motion?
have just one little conversation about before we vote on the next one.
Absolutely.
Deb and I just got back from the school board conference, and I mean, it's always great to go because you learn so much. And I just think it's a good time for us just to have a conversation because I really want to thank the CAT team for doing such a great job of getting such great information to us to make a decision. Because I really feel like you represented the entire community in what you did. Like when I take these votes, I know all 5 of us really take it serious. We represent every single person that is a taxpayer in this district, and we want to make the best decision for everyone. So it's important to me that we have good information to make that decision. And then as I was like thinking about this the last few days at the school board conference, I thought,
let me reach out to a few of our elected officials in the area because I just want to make sure we have that information as well. So I did contact our state senator, our state representative, the current mayor of South Lebanon, the future mayor, Deerfield Township, Warren County commissioners, and I did reach out to our teachers union as well. And I did not have one negative comment about the plan, which I thought was very interesting. Like, I don't know about you guys. I have not gotten one negative email. I have not gotten one negative text. So when we're making this vote, it almost makes it very easy because with the exception, I did get one email today. One. And how many homes are in our community, Mr. Morrow?
Over 11,000 based on the mailer.
Okay.
Mhm.
So 11,000 homes, one email. So thank you to the CAT team for helping us make a very easy, for me to make a very easy decision. I don't want to represent anybody else, but it seems like you got good information.
It's well said, Mrs. Groff. I would agree with those sentiments. We appreciate the efforts that you all put in. We appreciate SHP's leadership as well in that regard. It does make things much easier when you have clear, concise data to operate from. I mean, obviously. So, yeah, I would second that, Ms. Groff. Thank you for saying that.
And to add is just everyone's willingness to answer the questions when we have them. I feel that sometimes I have questions if I don't understand it. Sometimes other people, I'll understand something that somebody else might not. And I'll just be thinking, asking a question for them and getting that information to the community. I think I agree with 100% with what you're saying, Janelle.
Yeah. And even the Cropper study. I mean, there's no debating that we have an overcrowding problem. I mean, it's there. And we need to take care of the kids that are in our district.
And those that are yet to come, that
Absolutely.
are not under the tree yet.
Absolutely. And I would agree. I hope the public sees that. Our administration is always very transparent. We brought in the subject matter experts, Mr. Broussard, Mr. Cheney, and his team, and in combination with Mr. Spears, Mr. Morrow, and the team, it's it's all been very transparent. All of the meetings we've had, the meetings on the weekend to try to accommodate people. So yeah, it's been a tremendous effort by everyone. So thank you very much for that.
So can I ask one last question? Janelle, you said you spoke with some of our leaders and they were very supportive of it. Were there any concerns, anything that they had addressed that we may not be thinking of?
Nothing, not one single comment on the master plan itself. The only concern that they had was just in general, inflation and, I mean, just nobody ever likes to increase taxes. It doesn't matter when it is. It doesn't matter if, we're in the heydays of 2004 or if we're where we're at right now. I mean, nobody wants that ever, but they seemed very well versed on it and they seemed also very supportive of the plan. So that, and I asked how many people they had talked to in the community and they had that as well.
With that, may I have a motion to approve item number 10, the resolution declaring the necessity of issuing bonds?
I will make that motion.
I will second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. Seeing there are no approval items for the superintendent, we will move forward with the consent agenda items for the assistant superintendent regarding HR and business. Mr. Lucky, was there anything you need to add?
Thank you, President Belfrom. Members of the board, carry that on for Mr. Sawyer. Just to clarify, got some information from Mr. Spinner, just, number 3, the technical changes is really just title clarification. To clarify some of our processes. So that you don't need a second reading on, so that will be approved. You can vote on that tonight. And then, board policies, he shared out the clarifications and no other changes on, bus routes in lieu of, or the OPSI contract. So, happy to take any questions.
Just one question, when we do add transportation in lieu of, is that immediate? Like how quickly does that?
Great question. So in lieu of transportation on our website, we ask for the application in September.
Okay.
State regs, we will take them all year. And they actually get paid next fall. So everything that we get throughout the year, depending on when that student attended that school. So if we had somebody move in to King's District and went to a school that we don't provide and we do in lieu of for in December, we would prorate that rate for half of the total amount.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lucky. Any further questions for Mr. Lucky? Right. With that, may I have a motion to approve items 1 through 6 under the Assistant Superintendent regarding HR and business matters?
I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Mark?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan.
Yes.
All right. Next on the agenda are the consent approval items for the Assistant Superintendent regarding the educational program. Mrs. Martin and Mr. Freeman.
Matt just has a few more items he's gonna present on the report card dated tonight. Not as in-depth as last time because we knew tonight would be a long meeting. So we just have a few items tonight.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind pulling up a presentation for me and then moving on to slide number 6. As we had mentioned last time at last month's meeting, we have one PowerPoint presentation that we'll just continue to add on to as we go, and then we can kind of post it at the end if we'd like, just to kind of share everything. So this is just a couple slides today. Just a reminder, there are 6 components of the state report card that we received a rating of a 4.5 on a 5-point scale that we mentioned last time. And tonight I'm just going to cover kind of 2 quick items. We had a question last meeting about similar districts, so I'm going to go over that calculation for you so you can take a look. And then also we'll talk quickly about the graduation rate component. So next slide, Don. Thank you. So the Ohio Department of Education has a methodology that they use to create a list of up to 20 school districts that they consider statistically our neighbors. And so this is the criteria actually that the state uses to identify those districts that are similar to us. So there are things like population living in an urban area. And it's interesting just to kind of listen to the number of households that we have in our district. So King's Local School District is considered an urban cluster, and an urban cluster is made up of either a minimum of 5,000 residents according to the US Census or a minimum of 2,000 homes. So we are an urban cluster. So that's kind of, even though we are a suburban area of Cincinnati, and according to the census data, that's kind of how we fall. So that is one of those items used to identify us with other similar districts. But we also use other things, or the state uses other things rather, including population density, median gross income. And these are used again by the state to do research, and then also can be used by the field. So educators to be able to see how we compare in various other areas to similar districts. So the next slide shows you our top 20 districts that are statistically similar to us. And I've highlighted the ones that are geographically closest to us. Probably Beaver Creek, Centerville are the farthest away. But on down the list there, you can notice that Loveland City Schools, Forest Hills Local, and Milford Exempted Village are three districts that are statistically similar neighbors, according to this data that the state uses. And so those are three schools that are in our athletic conference, schools that we have a lot of contact with academically as well. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. So we have an idea of how the state arrives at those districts. So any questions on that? The next item is just one of our graded components, which is the graduation rate. So just a reminder, this 5-star rating that was new last school year, there's a little kind of switch in kind of what that means. So if we have at least 3 stars and we've met state expectations, anything above that, we exceed expectations. And so we received 4 stars on our graduation rate. I just want to point out the 4-year graduation rate. So those are students who enter as freshmen and graduate in 4 years. So our graduation rate there is 93.9%. And then our 5-year graduation rate are those students who graduate. It take a little longer time to graduate. They have a graduation rate of 96.8. So those 2 graduation rates then are weighted, and the 4-year calculation is a 60% rate, and the 5-year graduation rate is weighted at 40%. And that's how we get the weighted graduation rate at the top, and that's 95.1. And that weighted graduation rate is what is used to determine our accountability star. So that's where the 4 stars comes from. So if you look, that's kind of hard to read, but let me see if I can make it a little bigger on mine. The 5-star rating is a 96.5. So you can see we're not far off of that. But that's kind of how that's calculated. On the right-hand side, just because we talked about comparisons, I included this graphic as well. And all of this information, this slide is actually on the ODE website as part of the public information that's available to school districts or anybody actually to see. So the blue line represents our graduation rate in Kings. The black line there represents the similar districts. So we are slightly lower than similar districts, but consistently higher across the state. And as we have talked about in years past, that really includes our students who are status grade 23. So our students who graduate in 4 years and defer their diploma because they participate in transition programs, or also students who haven't yet met requirements but are still staying until age 22. So those students do calculate into our graduation rate and appear to lower that slightly, but that's our graduation rate. Any questions on that?
I do have one. So I know it's going to be a small number. What about students who graduate early? Are they factored into this?
They are, yeah, students who graduate early are factored into the 4-year graduation rate.
Okay.
Yes, good question. Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. This is very helpful. Any further questions for Mrs. Martin, Mr. Freeman? Okay. Next on the agenda are the items presented by the board. We do have the organizational meeting. I believe we need to set a date, Mr.
That's correct. We need to set a date before January 10th. Keeping with the typical cycle of the second Tuesday lands on the 9th. So that would be good if that works for the board.
Questions, or we all need a few moments to check calendars?
Save that one more.
So we January 9th follows the typical cadence of board meetings.
Okay.
So I'm throwing that out as just follows the typical cadence, but
Yeah.
we have to have one by the 10th.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with the 9th.
I am as well.
January 9th at 5:30.
Did we have any other items?
I do want to give a shout out. I know we talked about the volleyball team earlier and the community, but I've been blown away by our community in the past couple weeks, just showing up and being here, sending the girls on the send off and seeing the sea of red. It really makes me proud to be a Knight. And I could see from parents in the stands who don't have children on the team in tears, just seeing what these girls accomplished and knowing how successful they are in the classroom. So I just want to say a big thank you to the community for showing out and showing your support for our schools and our girls.
Well said.
Agree.
Mr. Croft, for you.
No,
wanna
I
say-
agree.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something
No.
as well.
It's a very exciting week
Yes, it is.
and
Has
more
been.
exciting stuff to come.
We'll move to legislative update, Mr. Score.
I don't have a whole lot to update. There's not been anything that's been sent to Governor DeWine for signature or nothing that he has signed. But I did include some items, just some new items that are going, having hearings on or going to different departments there just for discussion. And also there's several new bills that have been introduced in the past month. So I've got a full write-up on all of these items if you want to take a look, and if you have questions on any of those, just let me know.
Will do. I appreciate the write-ups, Mr. Score.
Right.
We may need to put these on the district website. They're very good summaries.
I might need to tidy them up so they're a bit prettier, but yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I can work with getting those on.
And next on the agenda, we have the student achievement levels update. Mrs. Phillips.
Okay. Well, some of the things I always know, the high school girls will mention first, and so we'll skip through those and be a little quick about it. Just that the high school athletic department said we're proud of our team coaches, staff, and community. And the team has impacted Kings and left a remarkable legacy. And I think that's so very important. So I wanted to put it out, even though I knew we were celebrating the girls tonight. And some of the other Twitter things to the athletic department, to the district as a whole, was from Sycamore School District, sent congratulations, as did Anderson High School, Miami East High School, Loveland Athletics, OHSAA sent a very nice little mention. Plus they talked about the Red Sea and how remarkable that was, which so much community support. Turpin High School and also Lakota. And so I think that really says so much about all of the schools surrounding us, that they were all watching and rooting the volleyball team on. And then the digital media arts program was at OSBA, and Mrs. Groff and Mrs. Cowan had a chance to stop by the booth. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, if you flip to the next slide, is all of the awards that the digital media arts students received last year. And so that was part of their presentation, or when you stopped by, they were probably talking about some of those. So that was very nice. And then the next one, Kings Junior High. Last week, the Project Lead the Way classes took an awesome field trip to Makino, and FANUC, and they were learning about machining aerospace and automotive parts. And so that's just a quick pitch of one of the parts of that field trip. And junior high said another great learning experience for the students. Mr. Lice made mention that Mrs. Cavett and Mrs. Coleman introduced 2 new exciting math classes to our district teaching and learning committee for the upcoming school year. And the one that's on the screen is AP Pre-Calculus. And we offer a course right now, which is Honors Pre-Calculus. And Mrs. Coleman kind of went through all of the things that goes into teaching that class and how it's different. And I don't know if Matt wants to add anything else, but certainly that presentation at the Teaching and Learning Committee was really very good, because they talked about the students are having to talk about math and why they're doing a problem a certain way and what they're seeing in the answer that they would be able to take to a new situation and apply it at that point in time.
The only thing that I'll add, that's a great explanation about kind of the why we want to provide a class like this. So this would be a part of the high school course and career catalog that Mr. Lice will bring to the board in January. So we'd like to get any new courses that we're interested in and having on board at the high school before the Teaching and Learning Council to talk about it, to kind of explain all that Mrs. Phillips just shared. So we're excited to offer this opportunity for students.
Is that a new AP course in general or just new to us?
It is a new AP course as of last year.
Okay.
So it was brand new last year, and so we are piloting this year.
Right.
So very exciting for some students who wouldn't be able to take an AP course otherwise. The other big thing happening in the district was all of the Veterans Day celebrations. And so this is just letting everyone know that the Veterans Day celebrations happened across our district. Mrs. C in AP Physics, just because I wanted to give a shout out and say, oh my gosh, Dakota. And certainly tonight it was shared that all of the girls have such a high GPA, but AP Physics right before going to the Final Four was in class, and then they had a little celebration saying, you know, good luck and all of that. So that was just very nice. King's Band said they were always happy to be part of the Veterans Day ceremony at Kings Mills Elementary. That's been something that's been going on for quite a few years now. And then also some pictures from KME of the different things going on, the program in the gymnasium and the parade through the school. And then also you can see the band there where they were performing. JF Burns, having so many students and not enough space to line them all up through the building, moved their parade to the outside. And so you can see all of the things that the students had, and then the cars could drive by, and the children were happy to welcome them all. SLE had a celebration inside. Again, in the gymnasium, you can see some of the students who were sharing their poster of a family member that served. And then a little girl that's walking with her grandpa through the parade, and then a presentation by one of the 4th grade students. And the junior high said they were getting ready to recognize the veterans today at the Veterans Day dessert. And so, and then that one was presented by the high school girls on the early signing ceremony. So congratulations to all of those athletes who are also good scholars. And the King's Marching Band is once again superior at the Ohio Music Education Association for state finals. And then that all of the picture is just all of the volunteers that help with the band, not only constructing some of the sets, but then loading the equipment, making sure that it's all well taken care of and things throughout the entire season. So thank you to the band community.
You, Mrs. Phillips. And I promise we're about to get out of here. I forgot two things that I wanted to mention. One is I want to thank this administration and staff. There's been a lot of things going on this week, and you all are becoming experts at mobilizing in these unique events around sports. So Mr. Sears and I were talking about, first you had the Bengals, then we had our football team, we had the Lady Knights basketball team last year. Now we have the volleyball team, and you all make that work. I was bragging with you about us having the subscription and having the live feed throughout the district. So thousands of our students were able to be part of that. Thank you to Ms. Springs and her team making that work. Just amazing. And one other thing I wanted to bring up that I can't remember if we talked about this at the game, Mrs. Cowan or not, but I want to give a shout out to Mr. Rice and Ms. Rose and Mr. Miller. The most well-behaved student section that I've ever seen. And it shows. And so I've had a son who's matriculated through, and one of the things that he would always, joke about is, hey, Principal Rice does not joke around about student section behavior. And it shows what the expectations are when we have and when they go places. And I just wanted to, and Mr. Rice was this weekend, they see his presence, they know how to expect to behave, and to the point where he really doesn't have to do much. He set a standard there that has, become a thing as kids come into the building. So I noticed that. I don't want to call out any other school student sections, but we had the largest one and they were the most well-behaved. So I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate that, that we have a culture. It builds into that Power Five, a standard about how our young people represent the district when they're somewhere else. So thank you for that.
Also, to piggyback on that, the student buses that took many of the students up and they were fed. And so how welcoming is that, just to say, thank you, students, we want you there.
Yes, absolutely. And I had a delicious hamburger at the tailgate. So thank you to the Red Helmet Club for that as well. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I will make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Morrow.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone.